Hi, Jane from California. Hello, Zach from Texas. Hey, guys. Okay, we're going to start soon. I think we are just about ready. Um, really was not expecting this many people to show up, so this is awesome to see. Yeah, you can ask questions. It's probably best if we do it at the end, and we'll respond to them individually. Okay, guys, look, that's it. I'm going to start now. Thank you so much for tuning in. It means a lot to me to see so many people here. I feel quite honoured to be able to sit in front of all of you today and tell you a little bit about my story, about FutureKind, about how we came to be, rather by chance, and about what we're offering. I'll go through all of that in the content section next. But thank you so much for being here. It's really exciting to have you. So today, what we're going to cover in this webinar is a couple of different areas. Number one, why did 84% of vegans return to meat? What? Yeah, I was pretty shocked too when I came across that. Now, we're not quite able to answer that, but we can theorize. So we'll come back to that. The shady supplements industry, probably no surprise to many of you who read the newspapers, but we'll talk about the industry a bit and what's wrong with it. What vegans actually need. Very confusing. Lots of different conflicting advice from governments, health bodies, doctors, dietitians, nutritionists, you name it. And so we'll delve a little bit into that. And what they don't need. Again, this is an area that you're probably used to hearing your Uncle Tony saying, how do you get your protein? Well, I'm sure you guys already know the answer to that one. But we'll talk about some of the supplements that you really just don't need to be taking as a vegan. Finally, I'm going to end this with a special offer. I'm really grateful that you've come along here today. And so that's my little thank you to you. So, and obviously a very serious picture of a cat there. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about my background. So you probably can't tell from my accent, it's a bit mixed now, but I'm from Sydney, Australia originally, which is where I met my co-founders of FutureKind, Alex and Elliot. Elliot's actually my brother, and Alex is a friend I've known since I was about 12, surfing in Sydney. I moved to the UK about 10 years ago, then Hong Kong, about 5 years after that, and I was working with startups. My girlfriend at the time was actually from Hong Kong, so that's what brought that about. And I won't spend this whole webinar talking about why I became vegan and the reasons behind that, because I'm assuming most of you are already vegan and completely sold on the reasons behind it. But for my story, I became vegan after the Chinese Dog Festival. Now, some of you may have heard of this, but every year there's an annual dog eating festival in China, which is pretty tragic, and rightfully so. There's a lot of outcry and petitions that start circulating in the region, but I just thought it was a bit hypocritical of all of us to be sitting there and circulating these petitions in the same mouthful as eating, some bacon or something like that. And it was actually, there was an article in The Guardian written by a journalist called George Monbiot, and he was basically pointing out that hypocrisy. And it led, someone in the comments section wrote, "All meat is murder," and they linked to a documentary you may well know called Earthlings. After watching that, something just switched in my brain. I wasn't naive about the reality, but something about that documentary just really changed me, and I learned about animal exploitation. And after that, I then watched a couple of other documentaries like Cowspiracy and Mission Blue, and I learned about the extraordinary environmental impact that animal agriculture has on the environment. Then after that, I learned about the impact on health. And some of you might have seen the documentary quite recently, What the Health, and the World Health Organization releasing their new guidelines last year that processed meat is considered a carcinogen, on par in terms of how sure they are it's a carcinogen as cigarettes. So after that massive download of information in a very short span of time, this was about 3.5 years ago now, I started supplementing. and I was supplementing everything. Every time I read an article and someone said, "Oh, vegans need this," or even any advice, thought, well, better do it as a backup. And then one day my girlfriend came home and said, "I am so confused by how many of what pill I am meant to be taking and when. And yesterday I spent 2 hours trying to find a vegan omega-3 and it cost me $30. Can you just create a single capsule?" So my girlfriend knows that I've had a couple of businesses before, and I enjoy solving problems. And this kind of just came out of the blue, and I got it. I mean, every morning, we'd open up the fridge where we might keep our supplements. It's very hot in Hong Kong, so you got to keep them in the fridge, and we would, ruffle through different pill bottles and, how much of what to take and when and where. And then we'd go out to the local supermarkets and, they might have a supplement that looked perfect, but when you looked at the little ingredients, it wasn't. Anyway, this was the impetus for really where the beginning of this story happened. And so I started researching, and I'm a prolific researcher. I love it. I'm a bit of a nerd. I have to know everything about everything. And the problem I had with this was that there was just so much conflicting health advice, and from really trusted sources as well. So, most of us, when we're researching things, we know to look outside, your typical, the first blog or two you find on Google, and to look for more trustworthy guidelines. Problem is, as many of us know, particularly if you've watched documentaries like What the Health, government guidelines are often skewed because of food lobbyists. And if you look at a lot of the government food pyramids around the world, they still have meats on them and eggs on them and dairy on them. And I won't go into why I don't believe they should be on food pyramids. And again, I'm confident you've probably already done your research on that, but clearly, there's a lot of money behind these food lobbyists. The other one that really blew me away is that a lot of doctors don't actually get adequate nutrition training. Now, I want to be very careful the way I say this. I really highly respect, admire, and love doctors. They dedicate their lives to helping others. So often a pretty thankless task, and they invest a lot in education. But the reality is, if you look at what they're learning, often the education they have is geared around addressing problems when they arise rather than preventative health measures. So a lot of doctors will admit this as well. They simply don't spend much time actually learning about nutrition training. So many doctors, and you'll see this in vegan Facebook groups all the time, someone will say they brought their kid along to the doctors and the doctor said, "Oh, you shouldn't feed them a vegan diet, it's really dangerous. Kids need to eat meat." And of course, all the actual scientific literature doesn't support that. The scientific literature shows us that vegans are generally healthier, just as healthy as omnivores, if not healthier, in fact. A vegan diet is associated with a low risk of diabetes, type 2 diabetes, obesity, some cancers, having a heart attack. There's a whole list of benefits. So government's guidelines aren't great. Doctors aren't always up to scratch, and many of them are. And that's when I started trying to work out, well, who can I trust? And that's when I started coming across people like Dr. Michael Greger. Many of you will already be familiar with him. He wrote a very famous book called How Not to Die. Grim title, but I really recommend reading it. It's a complete eye-opener. It basically identifies the 10 reasons, the 10 most common reasons that we die, and how so much of that's lifestyle related. Also, the World Health Organization. That's quite good because it's generally difficult for food lobbyists to influence the WHO. It's an international body, and their guidelines are, I think, generally quite trustworthy. There's also Examine.com. It's really worth checking out. They're an independent source that evaluates supplements. They're very, very scientific in terms of their approach, and they will basically identify each supplement. They'll tell you all the pros, the cons, and then they'll have a lot of writing behind that, really going into the nitty-gritty and the pros and cons of each supplement. So those were the sources that I came to trust, and using those as a kind of a base, I began to dive deeply. Well, let's try again. Dive deep. Oh my goodness! I began to look into studies, scientific literature, and began to create my own understanding of the reality of what you need as a vegan. So, one of the other startling statistics, which I touched on before, is that I discovered 84% of vegans return to meat. I know, tragic. Now, I'm still looking into the statistic, but all of us will know someone who tried to become vegetarian or vegan and didn't last very long. Perhaps they just a lot of vegans will recommend doing a more staged approach, and perhaps these people just dove straight into going straight from omnivore to vegan, and it was too hard. But for whatever reason, there is a question mark over whether they were eating correctly. Now, particularly for someone who's never been a vegan before or doesn't have any friends or family who are, to suddenly cut out all the things that make up probably the large majority of your diet, like meat and cheese, is going to be really hard. And another interesting statistic I came across was that 92% of vegans are not getting enough B12, which is enormous. And to be clear, there are a range of different statistics on this. This is one particular study, but it's certainly at the upper level. But almost every study will support the fact that the majority of vegans are either deficient or have suboptimal levels of B12, which is really scary when we discuss what the actual effects of that are. So we might be able to hypothesize that perhaps the reason why so many people are giving up being a vegan is because they're finding it hard. They're not getting enough energy. They don't have the energy because they don't quite know what to be eating, and perhaps as well what to be supplementing. So who knows? Could be many answers to that, but it's just worth thinking about as we go through this presentation. So the supplement industry is shady. I'm really struggling with my words today. You can see a photo on the on that slide there. It was a CEO slam for drug price gouging. Now he's actually in the pharma industry rather than supplements, but it will come as no surprise to you that there are a lot of sneaky acts, profit-first companies operating in the supplement industry as well. And as I did more research, I discovered that most multivitamins contain nutrients we don't need. And I really want to emphasize that. So when you look at a multivitamin and you look at the ingredients, you have to ask yourself, do I need all of those ingredients in there? And I'll explain why on the next slide. But another thing that the sneaky supplement industry does is they often have high doses of cheap ingredients and low doses of expensive ones. So you might see a multivitamin, it says omega-3, B12, D3, vitamin K, whatever else is in there. But you've got to actually look at how much of each is in there, and is it the recommended daily intake that doctors will advise you to take. So that's another sneaky trick. Another thing is the fillers are often poor quality. What are fillers? Well, the truth is, when you have a supplement and you have a capsule, often the vitamins that actually go in there don't take up very much space. They can be quite minuscule for some certain vitamins. You really don't need a lot of it. And so almost every supplement will have a filler in it, which basically has a few different purposes. But one is that it quite literally fills out the capsule so that it's not half empty and doesn't collapse. It also might make sure the ingredients stay together. But when you buy a supplement, you've got to look at the other ingredients panel and just check, what are those other ingredients in there, right? So if you're buying let's say you're buying vitamin B12 and you see other ingredients, you've got to ask, what are those other things in there? What does the science say about them? So check them. For us, I'll go into later, but we place a lot of emphasis on that. If you're going to take something every day and half of it is this ingredient you don't even think you were taking, it's important that that's a high quality product. So the supplement industry often cuts corners there. The other one is the capsules are often made from bovine gelatin, which in plain speak is basically animal product, usually from a cow. So you might think you're already buying a vegan supplement, but in fact, the capsule might be made out of something that's certainly not vegan, and frankly, we think that's completely unnecessary. So really go in with your eyes wide open when you're buying supplements. The truth is, and we have this on our website, the average multivitamin has no effect on cancer, heart disease, or living longer, and some might even have a negative impact. The truth is, most people don't need to take supplements, and if they do, they probably don't need to take the dozens of different ones included in your standard multivitamin. However, for vegans, there are 3 key nutrients scientists recommend supplementing. Now, I've actually taken part of that as an extract from a really fantastic article on examine.com that basically examines the studies, what was known as a meta-analysis into multivitamins, and why there is so much controversy around them. But that blew me away. I mean, multivitamins are one of the best-selling supplements in the world, and most of them are actually not doing us any good. In fact, some of them are doing us harm. So there's something seriously wrong going on. We're not hearing it. It's not really being published again. I mean, there are a couple of news articles that you'll find, but most of us aren't aware of that. And you should only really be taking a supplement if you have a specific need. So if, for example, you are a pregnant woman, or if you are vegan. And again, this examine.com article goes into that in great depth, highly recommended. Just Google examine.com multivitamins, and they'll also explain, they particularly identify vegans as being a group of people that can genuinely benefit from supplements. So, in our research, we discovered that most vegans would benefit from supplementing not 20, not 10, not 5, but just 3 nutrients. 3. B12, D3, and omega-3. As a reference, Dr. Michael Greger recommends all 3 of those. You can find videos on his website. And actually, those are the only 3 he recommends ever considering supplementing. How did we come to those 3? Dozens and dozens of articles, appointments with registered dietitians, consultations with doctors, scientific papers, World Health Organization recommendations, even local government advice as well. You know, we're not completely ruling out various domestic governments. And in particular, there's one paper which is generally considered the sort of gold standard when referenced for vegan nutritional advice. And again, they will recommend B12, D3, and omega-3. B12 is essential for energy production. This is not it would be nice to have like a coffee, caffeine kick. No. B12 you need. That's extremely important. D3 helps you live longer. It's also important for your bones. You may have heard of something called rickets. It's very unusual these days, but you do need vitamin D and omega-3. The common belief is that this is important for your heart function. Actually, the science doesn't really support that as much anymore. It's actually, however, the science is very clear that it's important for brain function and development. So we'll go into those 3. B12, probably the supplement that most vegans will think about. Some of you might already be taking it. This is just a non-negotiable one. It's an essential vitamin to make DNA and red blood cells. 92% of vegans are not getting enough B12. So this is really worrying, but it also excites me because it gives me a mission. I really want to help grow the vegan movement and help the planet shift to a plant-based diet. And so by spreading this message and helping vegans get B12, it's exciting. Even if I can help one person from avoiding potentially catastrophic medical consequences, then my job is done. So deficiencies can lead to irreversible nerve damage. You may have heard of anemia. It's not uncommon, and it can be very serious. Now, many people will say, but you can get it from nutritional yeast and soy milk. That's true, but it's important to point out a couple of things. One is it doesn't come naturally within those products. It actually is added to that product as a supplement. So even if if you're eating nutritional yeast or soy milk, both of which are awesome and I consume regularly, you're still having a supplement. The problem is that it can be difficult to know exactly how much B12 you're getting from those products. For example, with soy milk, some of the actual fortified B12 might sink to the bottom of the carton. So for 3/4 of the week, you're just drinking part of the milk that doesn't have the B12 in it. Then you get it all at the end. The main point is it's very difficult to know exactly how much B12 you're getting with fortified foods. So again, to be clear, it's not to say I'm saying don't eat them. Eat them. They're fantastic. But depending them as a source of B12 is not a good idea. A lot of doctors will support that. And I don't really know anyone that would recommend against taking a B12 supplement. Whatever you do and whatever happens with the rest of this webinar, I want you to come out of this to know one thing. Please, if you are vegan, take a B12 supplement. That's just completely, it's the most important thing you can do. You are not going to get it from whole food sources. Take it from a supplement. Hopefully I made myself clear on that one. You might be able to tell I'm pretty passionate about it. Okay, next one, vitamin D. So most of you will know you can get D2 and D3. D3 is known as the sunshine vitamin, and roughly 20 minutes a day in direct sunlight without sunscreen and ideally clothing will usually give you your recommended daily dose of D3. It's an essential vitamin for bone health, and it also helps us live longer. However, unfortunately, the reality is many of us have office jobs, or we work inside somewhere, or we live in a part of the world like North America or Europe where through much of the year we're not getting enough sunlight, which is why 70% of Americans have suboptimal levels. And furthermore, the EPIC Oxford study found vegans have roughly 25% of the average level. So vegans have particularly low levels of D3. However, the general population is not getting enough D3. And the reality is you might get D3 for some days of the month or the week or the year, but a lot of us are just not getting enough of it. The great news is that for both B12 and D3, it's very hard to overdose. With D3, there are doses over, so our dose is 2,000 IU per day. They say that over about, when I say they say, I mean there's a lot of scientific literature to support that once you're getting over 10,000 IU, that's generally the maximum recommended dose for someone, unless you have a severe deficiency, in which case some people might take up to 40,000 IU per day. But the point is that even if you take five times the recommended dosage, you're still not going to have negative consequences. So it's very hard to take too much of it. The same with B12. B12 is actually water soluble, so if you take too much, you'll just urinate it out. The other thing with B12, going back for a moment, is that it has something called a very low bioavailability, which means that only a little bit of what you take actually gets absorbed into you. So that's why you'll typically see that the recommended daily allowance is much higher than, that's why you'll typically see that the ingredients included in a supplement is much higher than what you actually need to take. Going back to vitamin D, so D2 is, vitamin D overall is hard to get from food sources. So, and for vegans, there's really only one form of supplement that you can take it as, and that's as a vitamin D3, and it's a proprietary blend from a company called VitaShine, and it's made out of, depending on whether you're from the UK or the US, lichen or lichen. And so it's a plant, which is great because a lot of people say, oh, I don't want all of this synthetic stuff. Well, it's like we're getting it from a plant. And unless you have, you can see a picture on the left hand there, but unless you have that growing on your trees and you've got a factory facility out the back to process it, you probably want to get it from supplement form. There is another form of vitamin D that some vegetarians might take, or omnivores, which is made from lanolin, which is basically from a sheep, where they shave off the wool from sheep. And again, if you're a vegan, you probably don't want to take part in any kind of animal exploitation, which is why we include a vitamin D3 in our supplement. It's also best absorbed D3 over D2. And our form is from VitaShine. As I say, doesn't matter what company you go to for your vegan D3, it's all going to come ultimately from the same company, VitaShine. So there you go, a little industry secret there. But our goal is to be as open and transparent as possible. So we're happy to tell you those ones. Finally, omega-3. Again, this is a bit of a controversial one, and I'll explain why. Many people will say, oh, but can't you get it from Whole Foods? And yes, you're absolutely right. You can. So you can eat enough walnuts and chia seeds and flax seeds, and that will give you the type of omega-3. There's three main types: AHA, ALA, DHA, and EPA. Now, when you eat walnuts, for example, that will give you the form called ALA, which then converts into DHA and EPA, but it's a very inefficient process. I recommend watching the video on our homepage of Whitney English, the registered dietitian, who speaks about the importance of supplementation of omega-3. But basically, it's hard to get DHA and EPA omega-3 as a vegan. And Dr. Michael Greger, many registered dietitians and doctors will recommend taking an omega-3 supplement made from algae, microalgae in fact. So omega-3 is important. Why do we need it? It's important for brain development as we age. So a range of studies were done, and they found that people who took an omega-3 DHA/EPA supplement had less brain shrinkage as they aged. So I think it's from about the age of 40 onwards, or it could even be earlier, our brain size actually starts to shrink, and that has some knock-on effects. But there's really robust science now to show that by taking an omega-3, that actually helps prevent the shrinkage of the brain. At least 64% of vegans have suboptimal levels of omega-3. So that means the majority of vegans have suboptimal levels of omega-3 and are at risk of cognitive dysfunction. It's actually, again, similar levels for omnivores. So, in fact, Dr. Michael Greger recommends that whether you're a vegan or you eat meat and cheese and whatever else, you will probably benefit from supplementing an omega-3, but only getting it from a microalgae supplement, not fish, not krill. The reason why? Well, where do fish and krill get the omega-3 from? They get it from algae. So why not go straight to the source? When they've examined the quality of the EPA and the DHA in both fish and algae, they found that the bioavailability is almost identical. So, in terms of it's bioidentical, which means basically the quality is the same. However, with fish, there are all sorts of issues. Now, I know I'm speaking to a bunch of vegans here, and so you guys you're not eating fish, but for those who do, you'll probably be familiar with the fact that a lot of them have high mercury levels in them, and also a lot of them have microplastics in them. A lot of fish, particularly in the Asia region, they're eating plastic, and so we can bypass that. Let's go straight to the algae. Again, I hope that this is somewhat reassuring to you guys that this is an actual plant form, the algae. So it's not from some, dodgy Monsanto lab. Well, shouldn't say that in case I get sued, but let's keep this video to ourselves. It's an algae, that's it. And it's really, really worth taking. Actually, as well for pregnant women, they've found that babies who had mums who took a microalgae omega-3 supplement had better vision and a whole host of other benefits. So again, do your own research at the end of this. I just want to explain our story and how we came to this, but that's why we include an omega-3, a B12, and a D3. Now, you may be thinking, Sean, you didn't talk about the form of B12. Where's B12 from? And you're right. So D3, we have nice pictures of plants here. B12, we don't. We've got this sort of red blob. Let me explain about B12. B12 is from bacteria. And we used to eat, when we were UG and we lived in caves, we used to eat our B12 from, we used to eat from the dirt. And so within that dirt was bacteria. Today we don't eat from dirt as much. We tend to have our food pretty, it's cleaned up, it's washed. However, animals still eat from the earth, and they will consume these bacteria, and the bacteria will live in the gut of the animal. And so when omnivores kill animals and they eat the animals, they're eating that bacteria. For vegans, you can't get it that way, and so that's why it's actually grown in a lab, and you can see that picture, but it's a lot of science to support it. As I say, you really want to be taking B12, and you're not going to get a sufficient source of it from any whole food source. So that's why we have B12, D3, and omega-3. Now, here's what vegans don't need. I'll preface this by saying that if your doctor specifically tells you to take any of these, take them. However, I'm talking from the perspective of a general population and what they don't need. So iron. Now, there are high rates of iron deficiency. However, you can get it from plants. Get it from kale, from spinach, from dark leafy greens. You do not need a supplement to take it. I'd also add that you should only really take iron if your doctor recommends you to do it. There is actually a good chance that if you're a woman and you're prenatal, that you might have lower iron levels. And so you do want to make sure that your iron levels are correct, but only take it if a doctor recommends it. Why? Iron is a metal, and it's not uncommon for cases of metal poisoning. So the key things with iron are don't have it as a supplement unless your doctor recommends you to have it. Get it from dark leafy greens, much better source, and absorbs much better. That's why we don't include iron in our supplement. Be very wary of any multivitamin that contains iron. Zinc, so there's actually a little difference for vegan levels to omnivores. Again, a little bit like iron. If your doctor recommends it, great, but generally speaking, we don't need to supplement zinc. We can get it from our diet. Vitamin K. This is one I get asked a lot about, actually, particularly on Facebook. People are always saying, why don't you include a vitamin K in your supplement? Why? Again, you can get it from dark leafy greens. You can get it from, it'll be a much better source as well. And so just eat your greens. And that's really important. We advocate for a whole food plant-based diet. Wherever you can, you can. So any time that you can get a supplement, a vitamin from a food source rather than a supplement, we're going to advocate for that, which is kind of counterintuitive given that we are effectively a supplement company, but I suppose that's where the integrity comes in. Calcium, no difference to omnivores. Vegans get the same amount of calcium as omnivores, counter to what your uncle or aunt probably tells you. I've lost count of the number of times people say to me, where do you get calcium from? We get similar levels. So you can get it from tofu and a range of other different vegan whole food sources, but no need to add that. And I will also add, there are some studies to show that calcium supplementation can be harmful. So again, please, 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 if you're considering taking a calcium supplement, or if you already do, rethink it, maybe check with your doctor, and ideally get it from plant-based sources rather than a supplement. Magnesium, good news. Vegans get more than omnivores. There is no need, unless, again, this is something that there is a high rate of deficiency in, but generally speaking, there's no need for a vegan over an omnivore to take magnesium. However, a lot of people do need magnesium, but like iron and zinc, it's a metal, and so you should only do it if your doctor recommends that you take magnesium. I used to take magnesium. It has great benefits for many people, including quality of sleep, but don't take it unless your doctor recommends you to do it so you can get some blood work done. And again, get it from whole food plant-based sources. There's much better ways of getting it than so have a salad. Again, dark leafy greens have magnesium. Vitamin A, everyone already gets enough. There's really not an issue here. Most studies will support that. Okay, in rare cases, the doctor might recommend vitamin A, but on the whole, no one has issues with vitamin A, so don't worry about it. Folate and boron, get it from plants. Again, I know many multivitamins contain these two in there. Deficiencies are rare with these. Now, it's not to say that some people might not benefit from it if a doctor recommends it, but on the whole, get it from plants. No need for a supplement. Vitamin C, unless you've got scurvy and you've been on the high seas, deficiencies these days are very rare. And actually common to, contrary to popular belief, vitamin C is not supported to help fix a cold, which is surprising because most of us grew up believing that. We're all told, eat meat for protein, drink milk for calcium, and take a vitamin C if you're getting sick. Actually, the science doesn't support that anymore, which is interesting. So that's worth examining a little more as well. But deficiencies are rare, and pills can be harmful. So just be careful about that. Vitamin E, vegans get more of, again, than omnivores. And we get high, and also dangerously high levels of vitamin E supplementation. There is a correlation there with higher cancer rates. So again, if you are already taking a multivitamin or you're taking a supplement of vitamin E, I'd be very wary, unless your doctor recommends it. If you're vegan and you're eating a healthy diet, healthy, balanced, whole food, plant-based diet, you probably don't need vitamin E. And be careful about supplementation. Finally, protein. We get 70% more than needed. So I know that this isn't typically considered a pill form supplement, although many of us will take powders. If you're into bodybuilding, you can absolutely benefit from protein powder. I occasionally will have some hemp protein or soy protein if I'm in the gym a lot. But generally speaking, you don't need to worry about protein. If you're obviously this is a bit different to the other ones, but generally speaking, vegetarians and vegans get 70% more protein than they need. So that's what you don't need. Don't let anyone else try and tell you differently. And if they do your research. So we learned all that. I went on a really deep journey of research and consulted a range of different people. And then we found Whitney. She's a registered dietitian, and we also found a formulator. Now, this is something that many people don't know the difference between a nutritionist and a registered dietitian. Nutritionists are great. However, to become a nutritionist, it's fairly easy. And what I mean by that is that you could do a 1-hour video course on the internet and call yourself a nutritionist. Now, many nutritionists are experts. They've done a huge amount of studying. They're certified, and that's fantastic. My mum is a nutritionist. However, you've got to be wary because there is a really wide scope of quality of nutritionists, and the best person who you can speak to about what you should be getting from a nutrition perspective is a registered dietitian. This is specific to America. So a registered dietitian has to do a 4-year science degree to become one. They then also have to do an actual internship in a hospital. So these guys are medically qualified. They're often advising people with food disorders. They really understand the science. So, these guys are not going to be advocates of woo-woo food measures. These guys are hardcore, scientific, science-backed, evidence-based people. And so for us, it was really important to meet a registered dietitian. So this is Whitney English pictured. She's created a great video for us that you'll see on our website. She advocates that vegans take B12, D3, and omega-3. So watch that video that she does on our website. It's on our homepage. It's about 3 minutes long, and you'll just get her perspective on it as well. We also found an expert formulator to navigate the supplement world. So by this point, after my girlfriend had said, "Can you just create a capsule?" and I'd done a lot of research, and I'd started coming across great sources of information like Dr. Michael Greger, the World Health Organization, Examine.com, etc., consulted with doctors and scientists and nutritionists and dietitians, I began to think this is something I should do. There's a real opportunity here to create a product with things that, that the only things that we need, not all this other stuff. And I'll come into that in the next slide. But I was like, how do I begin to even do this? And so we found this amazing expert formulator, and he helped us navigate the supplement world. And again, from a manufacturing perspective, how to ensure that we get the very best possible quality ingredients. This is a product that I take. This is a product that my family take. And so it's I mean, obviously, we should be ensuring that just for our own integrity that every product we produce is fantastic. But for me, this is very personal. And so this guy, this formulator, he connected us with a world-class manufacturing facility in the USA. And he also sourced the very best possible ingredients that he could find. And that really gave us peace of mind, and that we were going to work with a company that was that has a quality control system that's just unbelievably advanced and in depth, based in the USA, with a formulator who's done it all before, with top ingredients, and all based on the advice of doctors, dietitians, etc. And this is the result. FutureKind. I just can't tell you how excited I am to have this product. It's really a dream product for me, in so many different ways. You may have already been on our website, but basically it's just 3 essential nutrients that vegans will benefit from: B12, D3, and omega-3. It has natural fillers, which again you'll find more information about on the website, but that's things like sunflower lecithin and coconut oil, and really good stuff. From the products are all from the world's very top sources. As I say, I mean, with a D3, there's no choice. It's always going to be from VitaShine, but there was absolutely no cutting corners here. And we're able to do it for just $30 a month. Now, if we were selling this product as a one-off rather than a subscription, it would cost us a lot more. And if you were to go out to a pharmacist and you were to look for a high-quality vegan B12, a high-quality vegan D3, and a high-quality vegan omega-3, you'd be looking potentially as much as $90 US. I'd rather not sell it for $90. And the other thing is, for vitamins to work, you need to keep taking them. So just sending you a one-off product, selling you a one-off product is not going to work. And so that's why we have this subscription approach. On the first few sales, we actually make a loss generally when we're selling it to you. So that's why we're really pleased that we can do it for just $30 a month, $1 a day, for all of those incredible benefits. The product's made in the USA at a GMP facility. For those that don't know, that's called a Good Manufacturing Practice Facility. It's the gold standard of facilities, and we carry out third-party testing with an independent testing company. So every batch is run through them, and they just test it for purities and anything else to make sure that it's a really high-quality product. The capsules are a dream as well. We managed to find a special vegan capsule, so we can do without the bovine rubbish, the gelatin. They're really easy to swallow. They're pretty tasteless. They won't make you feel nauseous. It's just like so brilliant. And it pretty much ticks every single box ever in terms of what it doesn't have in it. So no GMOs. Look, some of you won't be concerned about that. Personally, I'm not, but I know a lot of you also are. And so we wanted to make sure that we included that. It's gluten-free, it's wheat-free, it's yeast-free, it's nut-free, it's soy-free, it's salt-free, and it doesn't have any animal products. Hopefully you will have figured that one out by now. There's also no artificial colors or preservatives, so it's about as raw as an ingredient as you could make. And you'll see the capsules are even transparent, and we think it's beautiful because it's just it's kind of as transparent and honest as we can be. and it was what I wanted to take myself. It's what my girlfriend wanted to take, and it ticks all the boxes for us. And not only that, it's actually really helping people. You know, there are a vitamin D deficiency and a B12 deficiency. It can be really harmful. So this is something that vegans should really consider taking, and that will benefit you long term. And so we're helping the planet by it, and hopefully we can help reduce that number of 84% of vegans that give up, and help bring that down by giving people the nutrients they need to not just survive on a vegan diet, but to thrive. Now, this was really important to me as a bit of a greenie. I'm very much into the environment, and I imagine a lot of you are as well. So I kind of had a bit of a struggle with this, because I was like, oh, how do I sell a supplement and create these plastic bottles without destroying the environment? You know, do I really want to do this? And so I spent almost as much time researching the packaging as I did the actual supplement. I kid you not, you really go down the rabbit hole. I discovered a few things. So most supplement bottles are made from plastic. And you don't want to do glass, because if glass smashes and you get a bit of shard of glass in your supplement, it's not pretty for anyone. So that's why they're made from plastic. And some of the plastics have things like BPA in them, which is potentially carcinogenic. So there's a really big question mark over the quality of plastics. So as I was doing my research, I came across this whole biodegradable trend with plastics. And initially I was really hopeful. I thought, wow, we'll just do a biodegradable plastic container. And actually, as I researched it more and more, I discovered something really alarming, which is that biodegradable plastic, even though the people who are producing it, I'm sure, are well-intentioned, it's not actually getting recycled at the moment. And there's a reason behind that. Basically, biodegradable products have to be composted in a commercial composting facility. So if you just go into your garden and put it in your own compost bin, it'll take a very, very long time to compost. And so it has to go to a specific recycling facility, and it has to go through a 3-month cycle. So for 3 months, that product has to be in that facility. The problem is, the facilities are only doing 1-month cycles. And this is California's largest biodegradable recycling facility, only does 1 month. Make things even worse, most of these industrial composting facilities are not accepting biodegradable packaging. They simply won't accept it, because they're like, look, we run for a month, not 3 months. So here's the reality of what's happening with biodegradable packaging. And look, I want to be careful about this, because I do think ultimately it would be great to have biodegradable packaging. But the truth is, a lot of biodegradable packaging is sadly either ending up in landfill, where it can stay there for as long as 1,000 years if it's tightly packed, or it's contaminating actual recyclable plastic. So unfortunately, it's really not a good option at the moment. However, great news, I discovered another new technology, which is called 100% recycled PET plastic, non-toxic. Basically, step one is to have a plastic bottle that you can recycle. Okay, that's great. Our plastic bottle is actually made from recycled plastic bottles. So you'll see the color of the plastic is actually slightly off. Slightly grayish plastic, which, well, you know, from a marketing standpoint, I probably almost would have preferred a transparent one. I'm so happy to have something it's made from recycled material, and it can be recycled. So our plastic bottles are 100% recycled and recyclable, and our packaging we decided to do without the boxes, without the 10-page brochures and all the other stuff in there, and to keep it really simple. So we use a 100% recycled material mailer made from old newspapers, and it's also recyclable. And finally, we carbon offset the transport. So I know some of you might not be quite as concerned as I am, but if you're a greenie, rest assured it was a top priority for us. And the packaging is awesome. It also cost us a lot more, but that's okay, because frankly, I'd rather pay that little bit extra than make the environment any worse than it is right now. So let's drive this movement. This business for us is not only a way of helping ensure that vegans get the nutrients they need, but we're actually going to use this as a vehicle to help the planet shift to a plant-based diet. And in fact, that is why we started the Future Kind Fund. So for me, this is a business this is not something that I want to wrap up and get rid of. This is something that is a really big passion project for me, and we've created something called the Future Kind Fund, where we're going to start basically investing in charities that are helping grow the vegan movement, whether that's an animal sanctuary or it's an advocacy group, or even helping to fund another vegan documentary or a documentary that shows the reality of animal agriculture. We want to grow this movement. It's awesome for us because the more vegans there are, the more vegans that will take our supplement. But it's also awesome for the 70 billion animals a year that are needlessly slaughtered and that go through suffering, and for the environment, the deforestation that's being driven by the animal agricultural movement, by animal agriculture, and for climate change. We could effectively cut or solve climate change almost overnight if we all move to a vegan diet. So we want to use this business as a way of really driving that movement. It's my mission and it's my life mission. So by joining us and by being part of Future Kind, you're not just buying a supplement that's going to help look after your health, but you're also going to help grow and drive the movement. So thank you so much for spending all of this time with me. And as a thank you for you, I'm really thrilled to be able to offer you a $10 voucher for Future Kind. As I say, we're not going to make a profit on this on the first sale to you or even the second, but I'm really thrilled that you stayed with us for this entire presentation. And by me being able to tell you my story, I'm hoping you can understand the journey that we've been on as a company and me as an individual. So thank you so much. I hope you understand why we're so excited to have this product. And so it's a $10 voucher, and you can use the coupon code at checkout on our website on futurekind.io. And the coupon code is 10FK. So it's only available for 24 hours. And then we'll be, that's it. Unfortunately, if we always had a discount, we'd probably not be able to make this business work. But thank you so much for spending the time and listening to my story. The other thing as well is, please say hello to me. I get lonely, so send me an email, or my email is Shaun@futurekind.io, SHAUN at futurekind.io. Tell me that you've watched the video. Let me know if you have any questions. Please don't send me any hate mail. The internet can be pretty aggressive like that. I will cry. Just say hello. I really, for me, this is about building a community, and so the more I get to meet you, the better. So thanks again. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook, and appreciate your time. That's it from me. Thank you very much. Go get this. Go subscribe now. You will not regret it. It's the best decision you'll make this year, and maybe for your life, for your health. And it's once you've got these 3 ingredients, that's it. You can just focus on eating healthily. Thank you so much. Love you guys. Take care. Speak soon. Bye.